Now I'm going to show you how to make the quickest, easiest loaf of sourdough bread. Okay, bowl, need one of those. We're going to need 2 cups of water, but I'm going to put 1 cup in straight away, like so. And here in this little jar, and this is the perfect container for sourdough community to live in. I got this from a thrift shop for about $3. And it hasn't got an irritating lid in here, you know, where things get all caught up in. And you can see that they're absolutely adoring it in there. And I fed them 8 hours ago because they need constantly looking after these things. You can't just leave them. It's like kids. You can't just leave your kids. You've got to feed your kids. And there's trillions of them in here. So I fed it. Now you can see that it's come up to the thing. And if it was like that when I went to the fridge to feed it, I would take out a chunk because it's already spent and there's no food left in it, and then I'd replace it with fresh food. And if you're not going to be making sourdough bread very often, then these should be living in the fridge. They go nine-eyes in the fridge, so you're not having to keep looking after them. They sort of just go to sleep. Wouldn't it be good if our kids would just quietly go to sleep and yeah, we could just warm them up and away they'd go again. But that's how it is. So that's already been fed. It's taken out of the fridge, warmed up to room temperature, fed, and now it's waiting to be helpful. So I'm going to put 1/2 cup of sourdough starter straight into my bowl. And because this is a weight loss site that we have, Diet Easily, because of that, I'm measuring everything carefully because they need to know how many calories this is. And these loaves are 1900 calories. So in goes that. And the reason I'm putting the sourdough starter directly into the water is because it gives me a chance to loosen it all up and get them spread, you know, because they're spreading now throughout the liquid. So when I mix the flour in, it's going to be a lot easier for me to do. And because I love my buglets, I'm giving them a teaspoon of molasses and not a teaspoon of regular sugar. They love this stuff. And what molasses is, and I buy it by the 44-gallon drum, not for us, you understand, but for my cows out the back. This is actually what they take off the sugar before they give it to us to poison us with. This is actually all the good stuff that sugar had. And they remove it, and we get left with the bad stuff. The cows get the good stuff, and my buglets. So I'm going to put a teaspoon of molasses into that bread. Right, give that a stir. That would be like giving a kid an ice cream. That just gets them thinking, wow, life is really, really good, you know. She cares about us. And mix that through. Now the flour. 3.5 cups of flour, and that's going to be slightly problematic getting into this jar, but we'll do it that way. 3.5 cups, that's 1. Now this is just regular, ordinary, from the supermarket, wholemeal flour. If you can afford it, the best kind of flour to get is stone ground wholemeal flour. It is very, very expensive. And it doesn't have a very long shelf life, so you know you really have to buy it and use it. And we're going to show you how to solve that problem in a minute. So that's 3, was it? We're counting back there? Here we are. 3.5, and that is I think that one is 1/3, so we'll just guess a little bit here. Don't know where the half one disappeared to. Now I'm going to put some seeds in here. If you're actually making this loaf and you're on a weight loss program, don't do this part because seeds actually are highly calorific, but they're also highly good for you. So if you're making it for other people or you're on your maintenance sort of side of everything, you'd want to maybe put some seeds in. And the reason I'm going to put them in now is because, as Shana mentioned, seeds also have this issue with phytates. In fact, they have it slightly bigger than the grains do. And so, you know, you think you're giving your kids all kinds of good stuff, giving them all these seeds and nuts and things, and actually maybe not unless they're soaked and looked after. So I'm going to put in 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds, why not? 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds, and 1/4 cup of sesame seeds. I can get my hand in there. Or maybe if I tipped it in, that would be smarter. There we go. Now I've got some other seeds here that you're not going to put in. And these are linseeds. They're fantastic things, but I've experienced this. If you put linseeds into a sourdough bread, they go like jelly. They are hideous things, and they turn the thing into a big jelly mess. So not these ones, okay? You can sprinkle them on the top, but don't put them into the mix. And then, salt. We need salt. Now again, I am not going to give my buglets, my little bugs, I'm not going to give them white iodized salt, because the salt that we have given to us has been bleached for us, which is so kind. They've bleached it and they've taken all of the extra things that sea gives to us, which is actually quite considerable. They think we'd like it white, so they take all that out and bleach it. And this is why sea salt's got this kind of dirty grey look about it. But we're not going to worry about that. Dirty grey is fine. That goes in there too. And that is basically the bread, except we're going to need another cup of water. Here we go. I'm going to put that water straight in because I reckon we'll need it. And we need a spoon. And all we're going to do right now is stir. There's no kneading involved. Because it takes such a long time for it to do its thing and to make a risen loaf, because of that, because these bugs work on the gluten, they actually do the stretching and the lifting for us. So there's no need to be taking it out into getting flour all over your bench and kneading and then going back and then doing it again. There's just absolutely no need at all. No need at all. So there we go, that's it. That's the extent of your kneading. Just a wooden spoon. And that is what the bread, the dough should look like. It should look not too wet, but not dry like a regular loaf. That's perfect actually. Now I'm going to use a tin. Here. This is my very favourite tin, and this tin is your standard good bread making tin. They are quite expensive here in New Zealand. They're about $60 actually for a tin like this. I got this one for $4 from a thrift shop, so I love it because it was cheap. And I'm going to spray it with a little bit of olive oil, just quickly like that. Now one thing I'll have to say is if you're going to make bread regularly for your family, never ever use the loaf tin for anything but bread. If you use it to make a loaf or a cake, you will be cursing the day you did it because that won't come out. You know, that it just causes everything to stick. So when it's just being made, used for bread, I never have a loaf stick in this tin. So we're just going to tip it all in here. Couldn't be simpler. Get my hands in, that wouldn't be too bad either. Got a bit of a bandage on my thumb today because I bought a brand new knife, and I've heard so many chefs say, always make sure you have sharp knives. They are so much safer. I do not understand why they say that, because every time I get a brand new sharp knife, I injure myself. And all you do with your spoon, I'll just hold it up like that because it'll make it a bit easier for you to see, is just flatten the thing out. Cover it with a tea towel. Pop it into a warm spot and leave it 6 to 10 to 12 overnight, a day. And what will happen is that you can see where the bread is in that pan. It will come up to about here. It will never ever double. I don't know whether you've ever made regular bread with regular yeast. If you don't go back and tend to it pretty quickly, it's bellowing over the side of the bowl and shooting out the back door because it's got this terrible yeast that just doesn't do a single thing for you except make your bread rise. So this one's going to take ages, and it will never quite get up to double. It won't. It's quite well behaved actually. So I'll leave that there in a warm place. And then when it's risen, just bake it at 180 centigrade, 350 Fahrenheit, I would say for about 45 minutes minimum. And then have a look at it. If it, they say if you roll it, turn it out onto your thing and tap its little bottom, it should have a hollow sound. If it doesn't, put it back in for another 10 minutes. Mine go about 50, 55, and then they're perfect. So that's how you do a no need to knead sourdough loaf.